You might have heard me say before that I believe we as humans are constituted, on the one hand, by an ape gene. And that's our more irrational and impulsive side, the side of us that tends towards tribalism and violence. But alongside this ape gene, we also have a God gene. I don't mean it in any religious sense, unless you want it to mean that. But I mean it as a metaphor for our more creative and exploratory side, the side of us that when confronted with something or someone different, tends towards curiosity rather than fear. And it's a tricky balance to keep, having this God gene and this ape gene coexist within us. It's like a cold war, but it's absolutely vital to get the balance right. Because the ape gene in particular, although it can lead to wondrous things, think about the creativity that can come from our irrational side. But if you let that inner ape run amok, then it will lead you to violence. And so you've got to keep a leash on it. But how? Well, first of all, I always advocate meditating. I meditate twice a day, and it's a fantastic tool in maintaining that balance, that level-headedness that allows you to regain control when you feel that gut instinct rise. But also reason. Because if you reason your way through a situation and think about the permutations and possible outcomes, you sidestep the inner ape. You bypass that gut reaction you may get to situations that displease you. Recently I was talking about this with my gym instructor, Aaron. He was pissed off because that day he was crossing the road and some dickbag bumped into him really quite harshly and pushed him out the way, saying fuck off, like really rude. And he was so angry. He was saying, if my girlfriend hadn't been there, I would have kicked this guy's teeth in. And I said, well, that's not a really good reaction. Plus you're still angry about this. You're letting this dickbag just get to you. And he said, well, what would you have done? And I said, nothing. I would have gone out the way. And he said, well, what about your rep? I said, I don't care about my rep. Think about it. There's only two things that can happen here. If I had this guy, a rude and uncivilized guy, push me out the way and say, fuck off, two things can happen. Either we can have a fight, and I detest violence. I think it's something to be avoided at all costs other than in the most extreme situations for self-defense. Or you have a debate. But let's be honest, a guy who is rude and uncivilized enough, because it's not like he doesn't know this, to be pushing you out the way and saying fuck off to a complete stranger, what, is this the guy you want to have a debate with? What's going to happen? He's going to stop and listen to me, a complete stranger, lecture him on the rules of civil engagement, and suddenly he's going to see the light and be like, no, you're right. I didn't realize that telling you to fuck off and get out my way and pushing you, that was bad, but now thank you. You've made me see the light. That's never going to happen. So in the best case scenario, it's just a complete waste of my time. And the worst case scenario is a fight. So I don't want either of those outcomes. So what do? I step out the way, roll my eyes and say, well, that guy's a prick. And that's the end of it. That is as far as I let it touch me. No anger, no frustration, no nothing. You've conquered your inner ape by applying reason. And I think that's something we can all work with. Applying reason to tame the ape within us, to think our way through situations and possible outcomes. It's always worked for me. I wonder if it can work for you.